The immigration officers at Moscow's airport offer the first reminder that this was once the Soviet Union. Boxed into decades-old glassed petitions, they take your passport and seem to conduct an interrogation with no words. For 5 minutes they flip through the pages, checking and rechecking the details, looking at photos, looking at me, looking back at photos, and then offering just one word. London? Yes, I said. That's where I'd come from. The ABC had finally been granted media visas after several failed attempts. Getting into the country is one thing, but working as a Western journalist is another. Our first step was picking up official press passes from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, a department found in one of the imposing Stalin skyscrapers built in the 1930s and still dominating the Moscow skyline. The press officer there speaks a little English, and I tell him I was last in Moscow in 2002 as a tourist visiting friends who were in the ABC bureau at the time. He shakes his head as if to brush away that memory. Very different city, he says. What's different? I ask. It's more modern, it's more European. It's just like New York and London, no difference, he tells me with confidence. And it's soon evident that Moscow has definitely changed. In fact, on the surface, it seems to be thriving. There's a confidence about it I don't recall from my previous visit, which was also in winter. Snow-lined streets, dark and seemingly uninviting, suddenly deliver you to hip new restaurants hidden behind discreet doors. There's no beef stroganoff here. It's Russian food for a new generation, served with a swagger. The cafes are filled with young Russians. But try to get a taxi home and you'll discover some things haven't changed. At least, if they have, it's for the worse. Moscow's traffic is some of the worst in the world, perhaps not surprising considering it's a city of 12 million people and its roads are a system of circles. According to one navigation company, Moscow and St. Petersburg lead Europe in traffic jams. And in the evening rush hours, that company reports that Moscow is the second worst in the world. Authorities say it is getting better, and certainly some Moscow locals insisted to me that was the case. There is now regulated paid parking. 2 or 3 years ago, you could park anywhere you wanted. The metro is efficient and the station's beautiful, but with all our camera gear we don't travel light. Taking the train and dealing with all those stairs isn't an option. One of our first taxi journeys takes us 2.5 kilometres. Our online map tells us it would be a 30-minute walk. In our cab, it's 45 minutes. Looking back, we should have considered ourselves lucky. At least the taxi options are cheap. Competition from ride-sharing companies has come to Moscow too. And that's a relief because in 2002 it was a choice between official taxis or gypsy cabs. I recall one night back then when 4 of us in one car followed the then ABC correspondent Jill Colgan in her gypsy cab. Crossing a snow-covered bridge, we watched as the car careered towards the edge, having lost one of its wheels. Not a puncture, but a complete separation between wheel and car, the tyre disappearing down the road, overtaking traffic. We still laugh about how she bolted from that rust bucket and threw herself across our laps in the already crowded back seat. Things have certainly improved since then, but sitting in traffic jams is a way of life for Muscovites. Unless you have a blue light, normally regarded as the preserve of emergency services vehicles, the blue light in Moscow is also regarded as a perk for people with money and connections, and that's been controversial. Locals despair to the extent they don't want to pull over for anyone trying to force a path through the traffic. Alexander Yurovich has been driving taxis in Moscow for 35 years. 35 years? And is the traffic worse now?
Да, все.
И как?
Ну как?
Лучше, хуже?
Вот сейчас становится чуть-чуть получше.
There are lots of car accidents during heavy snow, he tells me. Every 100 metres. Nothing major, but still. I've seen all kinds of situations in those 35 years. he says as we cut across Moscow's famous ring road. It's getting better, he says, almost trying to convince himself. But traffic jams, I don't think they'll ever end. We spend 2 hours with Alexander as he takes us from one interview to another in towns outside Moscow. It costs the equivalent of 30 Australian dollars. He says he probably won't take another job for the day. It's only 3 p.m, but he needs to get home, and it could take him a while.